On the night Queen Freya buried her newborn son, the kingdom celebrated, because the child's death made her husband's brother, Lord Henrik, the new heir to the throne. The priest called it tragedy. The nobles called it fate. But Freya called it murder, because she had heard her baby cry. Only once. One sharp cry. Alive. Before they took him away. And for 18 years, no one believed her. Not the midwives. Not the priests. Not even her husband, King Aldrich, who begged her to let the grief die before it killed her too. But mothers know. Mothers always know. And Freya had spent 18 winters standing in the western tower, staring at the frozen sea, waiting for something she could not explain. Some called it grief. Others called it madness. She called it memory, because she still remembered that night. The blood, the pain, the storm outside, the midwife refusing to meet her eyes, and Henrik, standing too calmly beside the fire, watching, always watching. Then, that cry, one cry from her son, alive, then silence, then lies. Your son was stillborn, my queen. She had screamed until her throat bled, demanded to hold him. They brought her a wrapped body, already cold, too still, too perfect, a stranger wearing her child's death. She knew, even then, she knew. But truth without proof is only grief wearing armor. And grief is easy for kingdoms to ignore. So they ignored her. And Henrik smiled. For 18 years. Until the winter night the castle gates shook with pounding. Hard. Urgent. Wrong. Freya turned before the servant even entered. The girl was pale. My queen, there is a man at the gates. Freya frowned. At this hour? The servant swallowed. He is wounded. He asked for no healer. Only for you. Her pulse slowed. Danger always made her calmer. What name? The servant shook her head. He gave none. Only said. She hesitated. Only said you would know him by the mark. The room went still. Freya did not move. For a moment, she heard only the storm. Then, bring him in. The great hall filled faster than fear spreads gossip. Guards lined the walls. Torches burned low. Snow blew beneath the heavy doors. Lord Henrik arrived, already dressed. Of course he did. Men with secrets never truly slept. His expression was calm. Too calm. Freya noticed everything. She always had. And then, the doors opened. The man who entered looked like winter itself had built him. Tall, broad-shouldered, half-frozen, blood darkened one sleeve. His face was rough with travel and war. A scar crossed his mouth. His hands looked like they belonged to a man who had survived too much. But it wasn't his face that stole the air from the room. It was the mark, burned into the skin of his shoulder. A wolf sigil, the royal mark of House Varik. Not tattooed, not carved, born. Silence shattered across the hall.
Who are
Henrik
you?
stepped forward first. Who are you? The stranger looked only at Freya. And in that moment, her heart stopped. Because his eyes were Aldrich's. The same storm gray. The same impossible stillness. The same eyes that made kings kneel and enemies pray. The warrior dropped to one knee. Not to Henrik. To her. And said quietly, I believe on your son. The hall forgot how to breathe. Freya stood frozen. Her body knew before her mind did. Blood knows blood. She crossed the hall slowly. Every noble watching. Every guard ready. Every lie in the kingdom suddenly afraid. She stopped in front of him. Her hand shook as she reached for his face. He did not move. Did not look away. Her fingers touched the scar near his mouth. Warm. Real. Alive. 18 years of grief cracked open inside her chest. What is your name? She whispered. He answered. They call me Eirik. Not prince. Not heir. Just a man carrying a name given by survival. Freya's eyes filled. Henrik stepped forward sharply. This is madness.
This is
Good.
madness!
Fear looked ugly on him. He pointed at Eirik. Any mercenary can burn a false mark into his skin and invent a royal fantasy for coin. Eirik stood, slowly, dangerously. If I wanted coin, I would have robbed you on the road. This feels like more work. Even now, Freya almost smiled. That sounded like Aldrich too. Henrik's jaw tightened. King Aldrich entered then, summoned by chaos, still strong despite the years, still carrying war in his posture. But the moment he saw Eirik, everything changed, because guilt recognizes consequence. The king stopped walking, stopped breathing, and Freya knew. Oh gods, he knew.
You knew.
Her voice turned to ice. You knew? Not a question, a wound. Aldrich looked at her, and for the first time in 18 years, the king looked small. Henrik moved quickly. Aldrich, do not entertain this. Silence. The king's voice cracked like thunder. Even Henrik stopped. Aldrich stepped closer to Eirik. Eyes locked. Two storms meeting. And quietly, with the weight of 18 dead winters, he said, "My son." Freya felt the world tilt. Because grief had finally been given a face, and rage had finally been given permission. She turned slowly toward Henrik. He was already calculating. Always calculating. Good. Let him. Her voice came low. Deadly. You took him. Henrik lifted his chin. I protected this kingdom. Freya laughed. Once. Sharp. Broken. You stole my child. The boy's death prevented civil war. You mean it gave you power? His silence confessed everything. If you're still here, this story is only getting darker. Take 1 second to subscribe and join this haul. We're building toward 1,000 subscribers, and your support truly means everything. If you love Viking stories filled with betrayal, lost heirs, revenge, and kingdoms built on blood, you belong here. Now let's continue. Freya stepped closer. Every inch of her looked like judgment. For 18 years I buried an empty grave. Henrik's voice hardened. And for 18 years this kingdom survived. Eirik finally spoke. Cold. Controlled. And how many people died, so your survival felt noble? Henrik smiled thinly. You speak like a man who has never ruled. Eirik answered. No. I speak like a man who has survived rulers. That landed. Even the guard shifted. Because truth always does. Aldrich looked like a man drowning on dry land. Freya turned on him next. And you? Her voice broke. You let me believe he was dead. Pain crossed his face. Real pain. Too late. Henrik spoke for him. He chose the kingdom. Freya whispered. No. He chose cowardice. Silence. Heavy. Final. Aldrich did not defend himself. Because there are some accusations men carry until death. This was one of them. Eirik looked around the hall. At the banners. At the throne. At the people deciding if he was miracle or threat. Then he said the one thing no one expected. I don't want your throne. That startled everyone. Especially Henrik. Good. Because power fears men who cannot be bought by crowns. Freya stared. What? Eirik met her eyes. I came for truth. Not for a chair. Henrik relaxed. Too quickly. Mistake. Because Eirik continued. But if truth burns the chair down, I can live with that. Now the room understood. This was not a lost prince returning for ceremony. This was a storm arriving with a human name. And storms do not negotiate. That night, someone tried to kill him. Of course they did. The knife came through darkness in the West Wing. Silent. Professional. Wrong target. Because Eirik had not survived 18 winters by sleeping deeply. He woke before the blade landed. Caught the assassin's wrist. Snapped it. Fast. Merciless. The man screamed. Guards flooded the chamber. Freya arrived barefoot with a dagger. No one questioned that. Mothers raised by grief become dangerous. The assassin bled at Eirik's feet. Henrik arrived last. Again. Too calm. Again. Too clean. Freya noticed. She always noticed. Eirik crouched beside the assassin. Who sent you? The man laughed. Blood. No one sends death. It simply arrives. Annoying. Poetic men were always suspicious. Eirik twisted the broken wrist. The assassin screamed. Try again. He spat blood. The wolf should have died as an infant. Freya's stomach turned. Henrik's face did not move. That was answer enough. Before another word, the assassin bit down. Foam. Poison. Dead. Convenient. Henrik sighed. How tragic. Freya wanted to kill him with her hands. Soon. Not yet. Because revenge without proof is just rage wearing ceremony. She needed truth, and truth lived in old places. That same night, Queen Freya went beneath the castle, past forgotten stone, past old gods, past the chamber where she had once screamed over a cold stranger wrapped as her son. There, hidden behind broken shields and royal bones, she found the old midwife, still alive, still hiding, still afraid. Old women know kingdoms best, because they survive them. The midwife cried the moment she saw Freya. Good. Here was honesty arriving late. Freya knelt before her. No crown, no softness, only a mother. Tell me the truth. The old woman shook. Henrik said he would kill the boy if I refused. Freya closed her eyes. There it was. Proof. Ugly. Necessary. He ordered the child taken to the northern coast, to a fisherman loyal only to gold. He said if the prince lived, the throne would never be peaceful. Freya whispered. And Aldrich? The answer hurt most. He knew after, not before, but by then Henrik controlled the council, the guards, the priests. The king believed if he fought openly, they would kill the child. Cowardice. Again, always dressed as protection. Freya stood, slowly. For 18 years, she had been called grieving, mad, obsessed. Tonight, she was simply correct. And kings should fear women who survive being right for too long. Above them, the castle bells began to ring. Not celebration. Alarm. A servant came running, breathless. My queen, Lord Henrik has called the council. He means to name himself protector of the realm. Freya smiled. Cold. Beautiful. Finally. War. She rose from the crypt like judgment itself. No crown. No jewels. Only black velvet and 18 years of restrained fury. The council chamber was already full. Nobles. Priests. Old men who mistook survival for wisdom. Henrik stood at the center like a man already measuring the throne. Of course he was. He always had been. When Freya entered, the room shifted. Power always notices when rage learns discipline. Henrik smiled. A politician's smile. Polished. False. My queen, we were just discussing stability. Freya walked forward slowly. Men usually say stability when they mean theft. Several nobles looked down. Good. Let shame work for once. Henrik spread his hands. The kingdom needs order. A lost warrior with a birthmark is not proof of succession. Freya placed the old midwife's testimony on the council table. Sealed. Witnessed. Irrefutable. The room went silent. Henrik's smile faded. There it was. Fear. She had waited 18 years to see it. Freya's voice carried like steel. You stole the crown by stealing my son. Tonight, I return both. Henrik did not reach for the parchment. Smart. Men like him knew exactly when touching evidence made guilt look too human. Instead, he turned to the council. Are we truly placing the future of the realm in the hands of grief? Freya stepped closer. No. You placed it there the night you stole a child from his mother. Aldrich entered then. Late. Ashamed. Necessary. He stood beside Freya this time. Not behind Henrik. That mattered. Too late. But still. The king spoke heavily. The queen speaks truth. Eirik is my son, the rightful heir of House Varik. Shock moved through the chamber like wildfire. Henrik's mask finally cracked. You fool, he hissed. No, Aldrich said quietly. I was a fool 18 years ago. Tonight, I am only a father. That hurt Henrik more than accusation. Because betrayal from loyalty always does. Eirik entered then, not dressed like a prince, not polished, not royal, just a warrior carrying scars instead of ceremony. And somehow, that made him look more like a king than anyone in that room. He stopped beside Freya. For the first time in 18 years, mother and son stood together where they should have always stood. Henrik looked at him, at the proof, at the room turning, at power slipping, and he made the only choice men like him ever make. Violence. He drew a hidden blade and lunged. Not at Freya, at Eirik, because cowards always strike at the future. But Aldrich moved first. Steel flashed. Blood followed. Henrik's blade found the king. Aldric's sword found Henrik. Both men fell. Silence. Pure. Horrible. Freya caught her husband as he collapsed. Blood spread warm across her hands. For a moment, they were not king and queen. Only two broken people standing in the ruins of bad choices. Aldric looked at her, tears in his storm-gray eyes. I am sorry. Not enough. Never enough. But true. Freya held him as the life left his body. And for the strangest moment, she felt no triumph, only exhaustion. Because revenge does not heal. It only ends. Henrik died beside the throne he had chased for half his life. Unmourned, unloved, exactly as men like him always do. The bells rang again, this time for a dead king, for a fallen usurper, for the end of one kingdom and the beginning of another. Days later, the people gathered in the great hall, not for mourning, for choosing. Eirik stood before the throne, the same throne stolen for 18 years, the same throne that had cost blood, marriages, childhoods, and peace. Freya watched from beside the old pillars, no longer grieving, not fully healed, but standing. That mattered. The priest stepped forward. Do you accept the crown of House Varik? Eirik looked at the throne for a long moment, then answered, no. The room gasped. Perfect. Freya almost smiled. He continued, I spent my life learning how to survive storms, not how to sit in chairs built by dead men. A few nobles looked offended. Excellent. He pointed toward the throne. If I rule, it will not be because gold touches my head. It will be because the people decide I am worth following. Silence. Then, an old soldier dropped to one knee. Then another. Not for ceremony, for belief. That mattered more. Freya felt tears rise. This time, she let them, because at last, the kingdom was choosing truth. Not convenience, not fear. Truth. Eirik finally sat, not like a conqueror, like a man accepting a burden. That was how good kings began, not with hunger, with reluctance. And that night, for the first time in 18 years, Queen Freya returned to the western tower. The frozen sea stretched endlessly below, the same sea she had stared at while grief ate her alive. But tonight, it looked different, not because the sea had changed, because she had. Footsteps behind her. Eirik. He stood beside her quietly. No crown tonight, just her son. Do you still wait? He asked. She smiled faintly. No, I think I finally arrived. He nodded. After a moment, he asked, do you forgive him? She knew he meant Aldric. The answer took time, because some truths deserve it. Not completely, she said. But grief and forgiveness are both strange things. Sometimes they live in the same room. He understood. Good. He was his father's son. And hers. Freya reached for his hand. For 18 years, she had held only absence. Now, she held proof. Warm. Real. Alive. That was enough. More than enough. Below them, the kingdom slept. Safer. Honest. Still wounded. But healing. And sometimes healing is the bravest thing a kingdom can do. So tell me, if someone stole your child, your future, and 18 years of your life, would you choose peace? Or would you burn the kingdom for revenge? Tell me in the comments below. And if you love powerful Viking stories filled with betrayal, lost heirs, revenge, and queens who refuse to break, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next legend. We're building this Viking haul together, and we're getting closer to 1,000 subscribers. Your support means more than you know. And trust me, the next story will be even darker.